everybody out with the puppies, walking them around the neighborhood. I got a good one for you today. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Nice to have you on a Tuesday. Yes. Today we're going to do more true crime stories, yes, and we're getting ready for the Murdaugh murder trial. This will be Alex Murdaugh on trial for the death of his wife and his adult son, Paul. They were out on his Moselle property, which is their hunting property it wasn't in Hamilton County where they normally live, but in the next county over. So that's where our jury pool is going to be coming from. Now, in order to get a little history on the Murdaughs, I'm going to put the playlist here. It starts with the death of Stephen Smith, the perplexing death of Stephen Smith. You know, is it a car accident? Is it a, traumatic injury? What killed him? Who was behind it? That's interesting. Then the death of Gloria Satterfield, Alec Murdaugh's housekeeper. That's a whole interesting story. Then there's the story of Hakeem Pinkney. Then there's the story of the boat crash involving his son, where Mallory Beach passes away. Then there's the story, I'm trying to think, there's so many stories that is the criminal enterprise of Alex Murdaugh. And I've covered them all extensively, so you'll want to get a flavor for the background of this trial coming up. Now, I want to give you an update on the motive for this murder. You're like, why in the world would he kill his wife and son? Well, as you know, with the boat crash, he was being sued. Alex Murdaugh was being sued for his culpability with not just his son's culpability, but for his trying to manipulate witnesses in the hospital right after the boat crash. He was trying to tell them, someone else was driving and it wasn't Paul, and just, say so-and-so was driving. And, so they're suing. They're still suing Alec Murdaugh. Everyone else that the Mallory Beach family has sued has settled, except for, I think, there's still another bar, I think, that has not settled, and I could be wrong about that. They sued the bar where Paul Murdaugh and the other young man got out of the boat and went to drink for a little while and then got back in the boat. They sued the convenience store that allowed Paul Murdaugh to buy liquor underage with his brother's ID. That might be the party that's still on the lawsuit. And they sued Alec Murdaugh. So it was his boat. And I'm sure he had tons of homeowners insurance and excess umbrella policies to cover it all. Because that's what you should do if you've got a lot of money and you're going to let your teenage son go out boating. So allegedly, one theory is, Alex was running out of money. We don't know what he did with his money. Millions. He would make millions of dollars every year. Sometimes legally, sometimes illegally. But in any case, we don't know what he was doing with the money. We have some ideas, but we don't really know. But, then all of a sudden, out at his hunting property, the Moselle property, his wife and son go out to the kennels where they have dogs, and they're out visiting the dogs, and they get shot. And the two different weapons, and they say that the shotgun blast to Paul's head almost decapitated him. It was that horrendous. And they do have evidence, or we're going to hear evidence, that Alec Murdaugh was at that property right before the death and right afterwards, because he called and said, "Oh, my wife is dying. She's been shot. Woohoo." Okay. But recently we got another flavor for the motive. Why would he kill his wife and son? Well, she was about to find out that he was in big trouble. His partners at his law firm, PMPED, had just discovered his misdeeds, and shit was about to hit the fan. So that's one reason he may have wanted to get rid of his wife and son. The other is that the attorney for the Beach family allegedly told Alex that if you try to do any witness tampering on this lawsuit, I will add your wife and son to the lawsuit. And there you have it. So, if you want to catch up on the Murdoch family, I mean, it starts with the death of Stephen Smith, Gloria Satterfield, death, Hakeem Pickney. Did I already mention all those? There's so many. There's so much drama, including his attempt to fake his own suicide. And then, right afterwards, his drug rehabilitation stay. Anyway, he's in jail facing 99 charges or something like that. Ridiculous. Other financial related charges, other than the charges of murder that he's going to be tried for on the 23rd. And my understanding is there is a gag order to prevent, because they have lists of potential witnesses, potential jurors. Potential jurors. And at this point, you can send them questionnaires and things like that, but there's a gag order. You cannot release the names of any of the jurors, So, that's a good idea, don't you think? In an area where there's such corruption in the legal system. Yeah. Okay. So that's that. So I have a true crime story for you today. Yes. I usually cover live trials. No live trials going on. Nope. Lots of things going on, though. Before we get to this is bugging me. It's really bugging me. And when I'm bugged, I got to talk about it. In the news, a 6-year-old shoots his teacher in the classroom. He hits her, in the upper left chest. She survives. She's in the hospital. She's in stable condition. She's worried about her other students. Following this shooting, he pulls up. He gets his mom's 9mm, puts it in his backpack that morning, takes it to school, gets to school, takes it out of his backpack, shoots the teacher. She is able to get the students. Apparently, I don't know how the timeline worked, but when the police arrive on the scene, the 6-year-old child, is being subdued by adults, and he's combative. They take him into custody, put him in the back of a police vehicle with another officer in the vehicle and another officer outside the vehicle. The teacher, who was injured before the police get there, somehow wrangles the kids, gets them out of the classroom, even though she's injured. Then she goes to the office to get first aid, and, but she was, it's crazy. But here's my thoughts. Why in the hell did this 6-year-old have a gun? Yeah. When is enough going to be enough in this country? When is it going to be enough? When a 6-year-old can get his mother, she legally obtained the gun. What does she need a 9mm for? Why? Okay, you can have a 9mm gun, but why is your 6-year-old have access to it? Why? I think if they don't press charges against that child's family, I want to know the reason why not. Because then the officers, they don't know what to do with this kid. He's 6. And it was intentional. This was not an accidental shooting. He intentionally shot the teacher. So they call in social services, and social services gets a detention order. They take him to a medical facility, is what the the police are saying, but I have a feeling it's psychiatric, and he's admitted, and he's under care. He's under medical care, psychiatric care, probably. But I think the parents, this mother whose gun it was, has some huge culpability. What is your thoughts? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. You know, my kids grew up with guns in the house because I was married to a police officer. At no time did they have access to those guns. Never, 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 never. We had a safe where his other guns were. Then he had his duty weapon that he would take off and he would put, I don't remember where he put it, but the kids certainly did not have access to it. Oh my God. And they learned very early on, you do not touch these guns. Ever, 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 ever. Shame on her. Shame on her. And if you don't agree with me, that's okay. It's okay to have an opposite opinion. But I feel pretty strongly about this. No 6-year-old should have access to a gun. I'm sorry. They just shouldn't. Okay. All right. Moving on. I'll get off my soapbox now and move on. All right. We're going to stay in Florida. Where were we yesterday? Oh, we were in California yesterday. We're going to go back to Florida. We're going to go back to Miramar, Florida. You know where I don't want to live? Miramar. I'm going to talk about another home invasion. Yeah, another home invasion where 3 people are murdered. Same town as Casey's Nickelodeon murders. But those happened many years before the ones I'm going to talk about now. This is August 17th, 2009. It's a Monday, late, about 3 o'clock-ish, that 911 is called. Now, I'm going to just back up for, I'm going to go forward in time. Camille Hamilton is in the Broward County Courthouse. Now, this is in 2015. She's watching Kevin Pratt be sentenced for the murders of her teenage daughter, Nikita Hamilton, the murder of her friend, Faith Bissessor, and the murder of Faith's son, Davian Bishop, and for the attempted murder of Camille Hamilton. She had been shot in the face, on her left side of her face. She recovered, but her hearing and eyesight will never be the same. So now she's in a courtroom, and this man, Kevin Pratt, is being sentenced. A plea deal has been worked out for 3 murders and an attempted murder. Now, your first thing is, well, that should be a death penalty case, right? Right. Nope. He pled guilty. In exchange for pleading guilty, he was given a 10-year sentence. 10 years. Well, Camille, she just flips. She's like, And so she says what she needs to say to him. She's Jamaican, and it's all coming out in Jamaican patois, but she's dressing down Kevin Pratt. And Kevin Pratt looks at her and says, listen, ma'am, I didn't do it. Now, he pled guilty in exchange for a 10-year sentence, where he was probably facing 3 life sentences, 4 life sentences, or even the death penalty. What would you do? I'd take the 10 years. That's a heck of a gamble to, anyway. So now we're going to go back to the crime. On this day, August 17th in 2009, on a Monday, it's a sunny day, it's 90 degrees outside. Like August in Florida, in Miramar. Miramar is, I'm trying to think where I was. I was living in Palm Beach by this time. I was not in Broward County. I was in Palm Beach County, which is just one county up from where Miramar is. But Miramar was just a very fast growing neighborhood, and 40% of it was black, and a good percentage of that it was Jamaican. Now, Camille Hamilton had just been in the country for a couple of weeks. She had come over with her daughter Nikita from Jamaican, been here a couple of weeks. She had a job as a caretaker for a woman in Miami-Dade, and was doing okay. So she is unloading stuff out of her car at her friend's house. She had met this woman named Faith Bissessor, and this is her friend, and she's got some stuff in her car, and she's unloading it, and this gunman walks up to her, this black male. This was the night of August 16th. He walks up to her, forces her into the house, says he wants money, and he shoots her in the face. Yeah. So she, I suspect she lost consciousness because she doesn't, the first call she makes is to a male friend of hers, and she tells him that she's been shot in the face. Could you get her help? I need help. So he's got two phones. He's calling 911 on one phone, and he's got her on another phone, but he can't figure out where she is. He's like, where are you? Now he knows Faith Bissessor. He's been to Faith's house before, but he doesn't know the address. And he's trying to figure out how to tell 911 where this woman is. She's been shot in the face. Now, the 911 operator, she's having trouble figuring out what this guy's saying because he's Jamaican. And they have this very thick accent. You know, I can't talk Jamaican, so you're not going to hear that from me. But she's like, what in the face? And he's like, shot in the face. And she's like, oh, oh. So she's trying to help him try to figure out where she's at. So meanwhile, she hangs up from him because she wants to give the officer his phone number, the police officer his phone, so the police officer can call him and try to figure out where he's at. So meanwhile, so then the guy calls back and says, I want to talk to the woman I was just talking to. And they said, oh, no, she went home. Change of shift, I guess. And she's gone. You got me. So that operator, she figures out pretty quickly, this is pretty serious. We need to get people out there. And so he was able to look at a map and direct her. And he said it's at the intersection of Encino and Fairmont and Encino, and it's the fifth house up on the left. This is how Jamaicans give directions anyway. It's the fifth house up on the left. It's a big house. There's a woman outside. She'll be outside, and she's been shot in the face. Well, it took them 30 minutes, but they find her. They do find her. Now, the officer that finds her quickly, you know, he sees that she's been shot. He doesn't know if there's a shooter still there. So he gets her and he moves her across the street. After he gets across the street with her, you know, and they're tending to her wounds and rescues there, she tells him, my teenage daughter Nikita is still in that house, as well as my friend and her teenage son. They're still in that house. So he gets, you know, he tells the other officer, he gets on the radio, tells everybody else, they come out. The next officer on the scene, he and his backup, they go into the house. They're kind of sweeping the house. They find on the first floor in the dining room, again, we're in the dining room, a spent casing, shell casing. And then they look up into the ceiling and see a hole. So now they're thinking somebody could be upstairs and maybe he shot through the floor. So they back out of the house. They get the SWAT team. SWAT team comes out and they do another sweep. They clear the first floor. They get up to the second floor of this house and they go into the master bedroom and they find 3 people. Yeah. The 3 people have their legs bound with duct tape, good old duct tape. I like to use the decorative kind when I commit crimes. Just diamond painting crimes. Anyway, their feet are bound, all 3 of them, two of them had their hands bound, and they all had been shot in the head. So they make sure there's no shooter there. They clear it, and now the hard work starts. The lead detective, who's already on his way to the hospital because he wants to talk to this woman before she goes into surgery. Because he said, listen, historically, especially with me, I find that, if I don't get to these victims before they go into surgery, a lot of times they don't come out of surgery after these gunshots. So he wants to get to her. So they notify him. He's on his way to the hospital. They say, hey, this is no longer a shooting. It's a murder, a triple murder. He's like, oh dear. So he gets to the hospital, and a doctor is with her, and he allows the detective to go ahead and talk to her. And she said, and very difficult to understand her, very, very difficult. What he got out of her is that it was a guy who wanted money. She was taking stuff out of her car, and he came up to her with a weapon, a black male, came up to her with a weapon, forced her back into the house, and in the process, he had looked in her purse, so he had touched her purse, and he had slapped her in the face. So they bring out a crime scene investigator to this woman, to Camille, and they scrape her fingernails for DNA. They scrape the fingernails for any samples, in case she scratched the guy. And she's a mess. So, meanwhile, back at the house, they find a white Mercury Sable in front of the house that is not registered to anybody in the home of this house. There is a vehicle there, and it's registered to Faith. But this Mercury Sable was not registered to anybody. It was registered to this woman in Miami-Dade and her daughter. So they go and they interview her, and they say, oh yes, Camille Hamilton, she's our caretaker, and we let her use the car. So that explains that. But then now, this is the Miramar Police Department. So now Broward Sheriff's Office, they come in and they take over the investigation. And they find in the garage a blue Mercedes S600 that is armored. An armored vehicle. Why did Faith Bissessor need an armored vehicle? And they find on the lawn these small plastic baggies. So now they're thinking, was this drug related? What was going on here? And during their investigation of the murders upstairs, the crime scene, they find a roll of duct tape. So that's where I'm going to leave the story for today. Yep. I will come back tomorrow for part 2 of this story. Yep. I didn't do any diamond painting. Yes. I'm working on, I don't know if you guys can see, I am working on, there's a circle that goes around the dragon, and I'm making the circle gold. And there's 2 bands of the circle, and then there's this lettering inside. So all the lettering inside is going to be gold, and it's going to be super cool looking. But, so that's what I'm working on now in the section that I'm at. And last night I just played Minecraft till I got kicked out of it. Xbox said, enough for you, go to bed. Then I sat and watched season 2 of Bridgerton, because I just love that show. The first 2 times I watched season 2, I didn't like it. This time I'm enjoying it. Now, why is that? That's crazy, isn't it? Not as much as I enjoyed season 1, I will tell you that. All right, guys, that is the show for today. I hope you will tune in tomorrow for part 2. What should we call this? The Camille Hamilton murders. Well, she didn't do the murders. We'll just call it the Hamilton murders. The Hamilton murders. Yep. Don't you just love South Florida? Don't you want to go to Miramar? No, I don't. I can't even believe I live down there. What is going on down there? Good Lord, with the home invasions. Yesterday I forgot to tell you. I am napping in my bedroom. Well, where else would I? I could be napping on the couch, I guess. All right. So I was napping in the bedroom, and I hear this, boom. I'm like, oh shit, what is that? So I jump out of the bed, and my first thought is, oh my God, my sister hit the gas instead of the brake, and she just ran through my croft room. So I look outside, my car's gone. She had gone to run some errands. And I look over, and we have this stop sign. This is the front of the house here, and we have this stop sign over here. And this has happened in probably the last 6 months, I'm going to say, that someone has run that stop sign, because it's only it's only stopped one way. This street here doesn't have a stop sign, so the people just keep going. So this red worker truck T-bones this woman who ran the stop sign in a minivan. So I fly out there because I could see her airbags had gone off. You could see, because when the airbags go off, you see all that smoke. And so I run out there in my socks. I run out there. I'm like, are you okay? Because the two guys in the work truck, they're walking around. They seem fine. I'm like, are you guys okay? Yeah, we're okay. And then I see this woman she's probably about 4'9", bless her little heart, little stocky Hispanic woman, and she's hysterical. And there's blood all over her hands and the side of her head, and I could see she had hit her head on the vehicle. You could see the imprint of her head, and I'm saying, you need to call 911, because she was on the phone. I said, are you calling 911? No, my husband. I'm like, oh dear. So I run in my house, get my phone. I call 911, and the guy's like, stay with her, get her to sit down, stay with her. If her consciousness changes, call us back. So I stayed with her. I got her to sit down. By then she had a friend on the phone, and I got her to sit down and stay calm. And when the paramedics got there, they took over, and I backed away. And then I go back in my house to put some shoes on. By then it's time to take the dog for a walk. And, she was okay. She didn't, but she's like, no, I don't want the cops. No cops. No. I'm like, you're injured. You hit your head. No cops. And the two workers, I'm like, did you call 911? They're like, no, we call our boss. Like, she's injured. Why would you not call 911? No, we called our boss. He's on the way. They were Hispanic too. I'm like, we have a very large Mexican population here, and they trickle up through Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and they make their way up to Canada eventually. She was the sweetest lady, so sweet. So later on, finally her friend shows up. I guess the one she was on the phone with. She comes, and she's standing because she refused to go to the hospital. They come, they check her out, and they take her blood pressure and everything. She refused to go to the hospital. So by then it's time for me to walk the dog. So I go out to walk the dog. Now she's just sitting there waiting for the tow truck, and I go out and I said, just to see how she was. And she just gives me this big hug. Oh, you're my angel. And she's hugging me. And I'm like, oh, honey, I'll just do what anybody should do, Call 911. They had to tow her car. That car was not going anywhere. So, exciting times right outside my front door. A crime, and I didn't have to go anywhere. I don't know if anybody got a ticket. I think some people didn't even have driver's licenses, if I'm being honest. Yeah. And she just did not want to go to the hospital. No, I'm not going to the hospital. Not going to the hospital. No one of cops. No. That's a shame. I understand. I don't have insurance either. So sad. And it just brought back memories of that time that I ran the stoplight and T-boned somebody, and my airbags went off, and I was like hysterical, crying because all I could think of was I just messed up my knee replacement. And it was like 2 weeks after I had my knee replacement, and between you and I was, had a little bit of Percocet on board. I had just gone to the drugstore to refill my pain medication, and I was coming back home. They said you could drive after 2 weeks. I was driving. Not a good idea. Anyway. Okay. Now it's a regular size show. All right, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow for part 2 of the Hamilton murders. Take care, everybody. Bye.